we're desperate for clients to choose us, to hire us. But there is, and there has to be, an element of us choosing our clients
Better
as
clients. We go back to better clients there, right?
Always.
So we go back to organically here too, because I know a lot of time, I know this is something Mark told us when we had a conversation with Gary Vee. It's like there's a difference between farming and hunting, right? We talk about hunting as going out for the cold leads, going out for people that are typing in, there might be price shopping, they're typing something on Google, they're looking for an attorney. They don't necessarily know what the attorney is, they don't know anything about the attorney that's looking. There's a difference between that and farming. You know, farming is going back to your network and trying to get the most out of your network as you can. I mean, these years as you were growing, as you were hiring more people, and because the demand was there, where were these clients coming from? I mean, were you getting people that there was referrals? Did you see an increase in referrals based on marketing? Did you plateau? And you talk about now plateauing now. And if you did plateau during that time, what did you do to get beyond it?
The best way that I can answer that question is to describe for you two different types of client profiles that we serve.
Perfect.
This doesn't really have to do with the area of law that we are practicing. We are serving clients' general corporate and business law needs, which can mean a lot of different things, and also copyright and trademark. These two different client profiles that I'm talking about sound like this. One is a client that comes to us because they need a legal service to be provided. Almost, I would characterize them almost like a customer as much as a client. They want to come, they want to pay us to provide a service. And when that service is complete, their legal needs have been met.
So more of a one-time, right? This is right, like an estate planning attorney, right?
Yeah, and you know, a copyright application might be an example.
Right.
The other client profile that I think of is it's a business that just has ongoing legal needs. And so we hear from them on a regular basis. And I have really gone back and forth, and I'm smiling because this has been a real mental struggle for me as a business owner, going back and forth about whether to nurture the more commodity type transactional
that's where
side,
I was going,
or to nurture the recurring business type side. And I'll tell you what factors have gone into that. It's probably seems like nurturing the businesses that have consistent legal needs would be the smart move. Because I've read many times and been told many times a fertile ground for you to farm new business are from your existing clients and your existing network. And so it's true. I think I would be perfectly happy if our firm had, 6, 8, 10 clients, and we just did work for just them all the time. Allows you to really get a deep dive into their business, get to know them, develop those relationships, and I just feel like it helps us to do our job better. The alternative to that is the more, and I hate to use the word commodity type work, but it really is, it's almost like legal services on a menu, and somebody comes in and says, I need that and that, and you provide it to them and they're on their way. The thing I really like about that is it is much more easily delegatable. Much more easily systematizable. And so we can build policies and systems and procedures and get our paralegals and office managers and marketing people and all those people involved in doing the parts of those services that don't require an attorney. And so both of those have appeal to me.
Great.
So the more easily delegatable type tasks that are done and complete and over requires a pipeline, right? We need a pipeline of those people coming through. Whereas the other one, if we can just nurture the relationships with those existing clients that have ongoing legal needs, it takes the pressure off having to fill that pipeline constantly. So I would say almost from the beginning of our law firm, we have been in that space between those two types of client profiles and still struggling to find our way, if there is a way to find.
The last time we did this, Mark was talking about to an attorney, he's like, sometimes I have a deck of cards, I'll flip it over, that client's a 2 of spades, and sometimes I flip it over, it's queen of hearts. It's like, where am I going after? From a marketing standpoint, from a marketing professional, I'm seeing there's a possibility for repeat business from referrals from both sides. Where do you see the referrals coming from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say yes, I do see referrals coming from both of those different types of client profiles. There is certainly a concern that with the size of our team, too many referrals and too much business can create as much of a problem as not having enough business. Nothing will wake me up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat more than the thought that something fell through the cracks. I dropped the ball. I forgot to call this person. I forgot to get this person their document. I had promised them by a certain deadline and missed it. And the fact of the matter is that happens sometimes. Maybe there are lawyers out there who never drop the ball, never miss a deadline.
Can't imagine.
I've never met one, but when it happens to me, it really it's like a punch in the gut. And so we do have to be careful. But to get back to the question you asked, yes, I actually do see referrals come from both of those populations of clients. And that's, again, just getting back to what I said earlier, if you'll allow me to repeat myself.
Always.
It's the natural consequence of doing good work for people.
Do your job well and suffer the consequences.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I think the opposite is true too. I don't want to pretend that every project we've ever done that we've done perfectly, and every client we've ever had has given us 100 out of 100 on our services. This is something that I have learned as a law firm owner for sure. We're desperate for clients to choose us, to hire us, but there is and there has to be an element of us choosing our clients
better
as
clients.
well.
We go back to better clients there, right?
Always. And so reaching a point in my career as a lawyer and as a business owner where I could identify red flags in potential clients and say no thank you, and even perhaps more difficult, fire problem clients. It sounds to many business owners, it probably sounds crazy, this idea of having someone who is paying you to do the services that you provide, and you tell them, okay, we're done and you need to go find someone else. But
it's good to be in that position, though.
It is, and it's not. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to suggest that it's not scary. And I've done it a few times where it was a very close call. But the fact of the matter is, if you realize how much of your time and attention that you're able to free up from not having the stress of having to deal with that problem client, I've become convinced over time now. I really almost don't hesitate.
Yeah, the opportunity cost.
Right. The opportunity cost is a perfect way to say it. I really have one very strict rule, which is that if there is a client that is rude to any member of my team, they can be rude to me all they want. I'm fine with that. If you're rude to anyone else on my team, it's one strike and you're out.
It's a good leader. Good leader.
And so I've had to implement that a couple times, but I don't regret doing it.
Yeah. No, I just want to go to another thing that we promised and talk about is like raising rates, being able to raise rates. Yeah. So I'm going back to you have the large business that you just keep working with repeatedly, or just ongoing legal services. And we talked about not being able to grow. And when I first started Spotlight Branding, we talked about this law firm had a really awful website. They really had no presence. And after we worked with them for a very short time, they were able to raise their rates. Their clients never went up in a short amount of time. It's tough to turn around a marketing in 2 or 3 months. But just based on their branding alone, they were able to increase their rates. Now, because you've been working on this since 2016, I'm immediately thinking of this ongoing legal services. You can keep the same amount, raise your rates, make more money, still do the exact same work. Have you ever had any issues raising your rates? What were some of the thought process behind raising your rates, and why were you confident to do so?
Yeah, our firm raises our rates, both our hourly rates for our timekeepers and the fixed fees that we charge for certain services. We raise our rates nearly every January. There have been a couple of years where we haven't.
Okay.
I'll put it this way. I can't recall a client ever complaining that we raised our rates.
What do you think that's from?
We set our hourly rates, I think, in a similar way to most law firms, which is a lot of it's based on experience.
Yeah.
A lot of it's based on understanding what the market will bear.
Sure.
I'm really proud of how we set our rates for fixed fee services because I think we do it differently than most firms, and I'll tell you why.
Please.
For our fixed fee services, we develop a detailed procedure with step 1, step 2, step 3, who on the team is doing each step, how long each person on the team should spend doing that step. And if you're careful about tracking that, which we have been,
you have to.
We can retrospectively look back and see exactly how much time from each person on our team it took to complete this task, and you can make an average. And then all you really have to do is say, well, how profitable do I want this service to be? And that's how you set the fixed fee. And what's been really interesting about that exercise is I expect that there are things that we do where our fixed fee aligns pretty closely with other law firms. And I think there are other things we do where they may be more or they may be less, in some cases by a significant amount. Because I think a lot of other firms set their fixed fees the same way they set hourly rates. Last year, it was $1.50. This year, it's $1.75. You know, it's just, let's make an arbitrary increase for some whatever reason.
Sounds familiar.
Yes. So when you ask the question about raising fees, I haven't really ever gotten any pushback. I would say the way that we, and perhaps the way any law firm knows, if you've set your fees correctly, I feel like you should expect to have some people tell you, I'm sorry, I can't work with you because your fees are too high. And if people are transparent enough with you, you should have some people telling you, wow, that's a really reasonable fee. And I think if you're getting both of those, then it's probably about right.
Okay. So, with us, you are publishing newsletters, correct?
The e-newsletters.
The e-newsletters, right? Yeah, publishing emails. So, newsletters, blogs, social medias. Video FAQs. So you work in a relatively niche area of. A lot of times we talk about the dangers of SEO, right? If you're an estate planning attorney in New York City, and there's 900 of you, 887, 809, I'm terrible at this, 897 of you are not getting one of those first 3 results.
Right.
Why do you opt to choose the top of mind awareness through social media, through a newsletter, through blog? Even though you're in a niche area, you might not have a lot of competitors to really go for one of those first 3 spots on Google. What was I'm interested about your mindset into that, especially as a niche practice area.
Yeah. So I'm gonna clarify something you said first, and then I'm gonna answer what you asked. So there is a good portion of our legal practice that isn't really niche at all. It's really sort of like general corporate and business, just providing general corporate and business services.
Great.
So there's a lot of firms out there that do that.
Yes.
But at the same time, we are in certain niches. I mentioned earlier healthcare, for example. Like we've really kind of drilled in and tried to understand that space. Myself and the other attorney at our firm have become HIPAA certified so that we understand the privacy rules and all those kind of things. And so there's that. There's also, I think, probably the most niche area of our practice, which is we represent professional disc golfers and disc golf related companies.
Tons of law firms doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not aware of any other law firm that has selected that as a niche. Now that we've got the landscape in front of us, I can answer your question.
Please.
And the answer is it works for all of that.
Yeah.
And, it really didn't. I talked earlier about when Mark and I discussed what's the role of these blog articles.
Yeah.
It took me a while for me to shift my mindset on that. It did not take me long at all when it was explained to me, hey, if you're trying to get to the top of Google search results, there's only a certain number of people that can be there.
Right.
The fact of the matter is the way that people use the internet, especially when they're looking for services, is they're not going to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th page.
No.
So
Not even going to the 5th, 6th result in the first page.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And so that resonated with me very easily. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I also want to say one other thing just about clients finding you using Google in general.
Please.
In my experience, someone that the only way that they know about you is just from finding you on Google, those are not always the best clients.
Please elaborate.
I have had much better success overall when a client comes to me and says, they'll name a client of ours or some trusted referral source and say, this person or this business suggested that we call you. Because I feel like that is sort of a pre-qualification exercise.
Yeah.
If they're coming to me, if someone that I trust and that trusts me is sending someone to me, it must mean that I can at least trust this person to a certain level. Are they always necessarily a perfect fit? No, but the chances of success are much higher.
Way up, yeah.
So honestly, I have never really cared much about where our firm lands in Google search results at all. I would much rather someone get referred to us and they say, hey, before I call this firm, let me see what their online presence is like. And boom, there's our amazing website. Boom, there's our amazing content on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on whatever social media platform they choose. Those are the things I think that have proven to me over the years to be more important.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a blog recently. It's going on the Spotlight website. It's like the cheapest way to get in the first page of Google is have someone type your name in, right?
Exactly.
You're going to land on there. So for someone who hasn't really cared where you land on Google, I mean, if you have any sort of numbers, data, I mean, if you're any numbers you're comfortable sharing about client size over the last 8 years, 8.5 years now of your firm, I mean, what kind of growth are we looking at, client-wise, revenue-wise? I mean, anything you're willing to share?
Sure. Number of client-wise, I don't know. I don't have that information at the top of my head. I'm not real sure it would be all that relevant because, as I said before, I'd be perfectly having 6 or 8 clients if my revenue was consistently increasing. And thankfully for us, it has. We've had year-over-year revenue growth.
Now, why is that? Is that from rates, or is it the amount of work you're putting in? What does that result from?
Yeah, I think so. It sort of has to be one or the other.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a combination of both. But honestly, I think I would attribute it more to us being able to charge more for our services than I would us doing more work or billing more hours.
I imagine the former significantly is preferable for almost anybody.
And I mean, at the point that I am in my career, my days of, being at the office late at night, being at the office on weekends, sitting in bed while my wife's asleep, finishing up a project, I just don't do any of those things.
Yeah.
Well, very rarely, only in very rare circumstances do any of those things happen. And
despite your revenue going up.
Despite the revenue going up.
Yeah.
And I think that there are probably clients out there that if they heard me say that, they would say, that's not the lawyer for me. I need my lawyer to be responsive on weekends. I need my lawyer to be responsive first thing in the morning, late at night, that sort of thing. And that's great. There's tons of lawyers out there that have that same philosophy, so that's just not a good fit for our firm.
Absolutely.
For us, I feel like you talked earlier about, how do you explain things to people when you can't quantify them a certain way? I can't quantify what I'm about to say, but the lifestyle and the work-life balance that I have and my team has, I am absolutely convinced it makes us better service providers for our clients.
Absolutely.
If a client has an emergency late at night or on a weekend, of course, we're going to be responsive, but it's just we don't make a habit of doing that. And that is part of the culture that I was trying to escape when I left a big firm in 2006.
And that was what your life was like previously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's what a lot of lawyers' lives are like. And I just don't think that's a sustainable business model.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I have for you, Chris. I mean,
Awesome.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, just in terms of marketing and advice you have for anybody that's ready to make that jump to a solo law firm. I mean, I work with clients all the time. I mean, and they're I mean, some of them you can really sense the feeling of deep-rooted ulcers by coming out in the real world on their own.
I think the type of person that is most likely to succeed on their own as a solo lawyer or as the owner of a small law firm is someone who is able to appreciate the value of top-of-mind awareness, relationship cultivation, just the smart decisions about marketing and business development.
Yep.
And for those people that are afraid, think like, hey, that might be me, but I'm afraid. If you've been practicing law for very long at all, think about the other lawyers that you know, and think about how rare it is for that entrepreneurial trait, that sort of outside-the-box thinking. That is somewhat rare. I'm making a generalization, and of course there are tons of great, creative, smart entrepreneurial lawyers out there. I'm not saying that there aren't, but think about yourself in comparison to a lot of the other lawyers you know, and ask yourself, am I likely to be able to do as good or better of a job than they are at serving clients? And if the answer is yes, now the problem that you're facing that is very overcomable is how do I reach them? And for us, Spotlight branding has been a big part of that.